Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and we're once again at Nutmeg Post with the engineer, Frank Verderosa. Our guest this week is a stand-up comedian, an actor, and voiceover artist, and possibly the only guest we've had on this show who's as obsessed with old horror movies as yours truly. He's appeared in films like Ed Wood, Get Shorty, Bandits, and played Joey Bishop in HBO's Rat Pack movie. TV roles include Duckman, Home Improvement, and Family Guy, and he does the best hunts hole in the business. Welcome to the Pitbull of Comedy, our pal, BobbySlayton.
Thank you very much. The Hunts Hall thing, it's very funny, was that when I read for Ed Wood, I wanted to do that movie so badly, because like you, I'm a tremendous horror movie fan. Now, when I say horror movies, not the new stuff as much. I mean, I think the last great horror movie I loved was Nightmare on Elm Street, or I'm talking about the old Universal stuff and the old, the Val Lewton stuff and the Catwoman stuff. And I Walk with the Zombie, and then Ed Wood, who had a special place in all our hearts, because you and I think Frank too, we grew up with Chiller Theater back in the 60s and 70s.
Well, you're a local kid from Scarsdale.
I'm from Scarsdale. I was born in the Bronx. Right. No, I was born in New York City. Lived in the Bronx sides too. Then grew up in Scarsdale.
Chiller Theater had that monster hand with the 6 fingers coming out of the mud. Go, Chiller.
Chiller. And then what it also had was, and when you're 10 years old, because you and I, Gilbert, are pretty much the same age, when you watch Plan 9 from Outer Space, which now everybody knows is horrible, but it's a cult classic. But when you're 10 years old, and my parents would leave me to babysit my 2 younger brothers, and I would be watching Chiller, and the lights are out in the house, and even though my parents are 2 blocks away playing Mahjong, and you see Vampiro walking at you. You remember?
Oh, yes,
From Plan 9.
Yes.
Okay. So that movie scared the hell out of me.
And they had like this gorilla.
Yeah, we had
It was like a collage, and one was a gorilla.
They had Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Harry! And when she told
I remember with that, phony-looking guy in a gorilla suit with the vampire. And what I remember is my mother had a big coat. I think it was like what was those old style coats?
The gorilla coats.
Yeah,
what, like a big mink or something?
Yeah, not a mink.
Vicuna?
Yeah, no, it was a cheap. She would never have a mink, but she had a big coat.
That's where he got it from.
And I used to put that coat on and pretend I was the gorilla in that Chiller Theater.
Robot Monster.
Robot Monster. There was a gorilla costume with an astronaut head.
Yes, and a bubble machine.
Right. So anyway, Ed Wood, when I heard they were making a movie called Ed Wood, I was actually in a hotel in Sacramento. I was playing the Punchline, and I'm reading this book, Nightmare in Ecstasy.
About
Ed Wood. And I go, I have to read for this movie. So I go to read for the movie, and my part, and you know about Bela Lugosi, at the end of his career, when he's doing all those horrible movies, he had the morphine addiction, he screwed up. I think it was on the Milton Berle show.
I was going to say that.
Milton Berle started
I think it was Milton Berle.
And he couldn't follow it. But he also did the Art Linkletter show, and he did the Red Skelton show. So what the writers told me was my character was a composite of all these guys, and I'm playing the befuddled moron in a hat character.
Larry and Scott, who we had on the show.
Right. Oh, yeah. See, okay. Those guys were. So I'm going to befuddled moron in a hat. So I'm thinking of Clem Cadiddlehopper. Hey! Even as a kid, I hated Clem Cadiddlehopper. I never found him funny.
Yeah, and you know what's
it's idiotic.
What's so weird is that I was the same way. Like, I felt like I had to respect Red Skelton.
Of course.
But I never really laughed at Red Skelton.
And I saw him years later at Caesar's Tahoe, because I was playing the comedy club up there, and I saw him, and he's Red Skelton. He's a legend like Milton Berle. We all know Milton Berle was an assaole, but he's still Milton Berle.
Yes.
Okay. And you got to respect the guy, even though he's an asshole. And we'll get to Joey Bishop in a second.
Sure.
So anyway, I see the part, says, befuddled moron in a hat, and there's no way that I'm going to go read for Tim Burton and do Clem Cadiddlehopper.
Yeah.
So I got a Hunts Hall hat, and Louis, hiya, fellas, make me Walton. Oh, hey, hiya, Dracula, whatever.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I said, if I don't get the part, I don't get the part, but I'm not going to go in there and do Clem Cadiddlehopper.
Yeah.
I'm going to do Satch, and I got the part.
Hilarious.
And, so that was my big claim to fame. But here's what was amazing about the movie Ed Wood.
Oh, but before I go on, do you know that Leo Gorcey was Jewish? His mother was Irish, his father was Jewish.
He has to
his
point out-
father,
Bernard Gorcey
That's right.
ran the soda fountain.
Louis
Dombrowski?
Louis Dombrowski. And he was killed. He was hit by
in a car crash.
Yeah.
And after that, Leo just fell apart. There's a famous, I never saw it. I don't know if it's available anywhere. You ever see Leo Garcia? He's on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Drunk.
Oh, I think I did.
It's got to be out there somewhere.
But I know, like, when his father died in 1955 in a car crash.
Right.
And he never got over it.
I was born at 55. No wonder my parents were so sad at my birth.
Yeah.
They were
was
big
all
Louis
about
Dombrowski
was all
fans.
about Louis.
Yeah, he didn't care about anything. He continued working, but he just didn't care.
He's going to
anymore.
point out everybody who was Jewish, just so
Yeah,
you have a heads up.
But I feel
Part of the show.
I feel like he's pointing at me. He's old, he's Jewish, he works, but he doesn't care. He was an alcoholic. This is me, Gilbert. I'm one of those people. I'm that guy. I don't care.
So basically, he was
Happy Rosh
every
Hashanah, by the way.
Jew,
Yeah, every Jew.
whether
Yes.
you lost
Shana
your father
Tova.
or not. He didn't
But
care.
here was a great, because I know you guys love showbiz stories. Here was the great thing about shooting Ed Wood and why Tim Burton is such a genius.
And after Ed Wood was shot, Leo Garcey never got over
He
it.
never got over that either. He had a tough first time to me. But Plan 9 from Outer Space, we did a scene. So we do that scene, and Martin Landau is Dracula, and I'm playing the befuddled moron in a hat, and I'm ad-libbing, I'm being Milton Berle. So as you know, because you've done a lot of movies, it takes days to shoot 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So I have no patience. I can't sit in my little trailer, which is half the size of this studio. So I'm walking around. They're shooting Ed Wood in these nondescript little old buildings in the west side of L.A. So I'm walking around, and I walk into the one room where they're about to shoot that scene with Lugosi, Glenn or Glenda, and with the shrunken heads. Remember he's sitting there in that chair? And after they shot the scene, I'm saying to myself, God, I want to take one of those shrunken heads. And I'm such a good guy, I couldn't steal it. But here was the best part. First day I'm there. I was only on the movie for 3 days. I walk over to where they're recreating the graveyard scene where Tori Johnson comes out of the grave. Okay. Right. They're recreating it. And I'm watching these guys. And there's union guys doing storyboards. And they're making those little cardboard crosses. And they're making the graves and the trees. And I come back the next day. They're still working on it. That must have taken them. It must have cost them $1 million to do this. It probably cost Ed Wood $35 to do this whole thing. It probably cost to feed these union guys lunch, these Teamsters, more money than the entire budget of Ed Wood put together.
George the Animal Steele's Swedish lessons cost
Exactly.
more
Now,
than...
the wrestler in that, was that his voice?
I don't remember. I didn't work with that guy.
I heard he took Swedish lessons to sound like Thor, but I don't know if they dubbed
I
him.
wasn't sure if that was his voice or not.
Don't know.
But here was
We'll ask Scott and Larry.
But you know what was great? The 3 days that I'm working on that movie, this is such a thrill for me. And when you work on a film or you get to meet people in showbiz you grew up with that you love. So there's Martin Landau, and he's in his Dracula costume, and he doesn't want to sit in his trailer. And Johnny Depp could not have been a nicer guy, and Johnny doesn't want to sit in his trailer. So me and Johnny are sitting there, and Martin Landau, dressed up like Dracula, is telling us all these stories about Hitchcock because he worked on North by Northwest.
Wow. That's right.
Classic, one of the greatest movies of all time. And he's talking about all these films he worked on. And he's talking about Mission Impossible. And then after about an hour, I brought up, and by the way, you were also in the Harlem Globetrotters Go to Gilligan's Island.
Yes, he was.
And
Yes, he was.
And he goes, well, yeah, I did that too.
With Barbara Bain.
But but he actually was in that. But Johnny Depp was so cool that my daughter wanted to come to the set. My daughter was about 5'10" at the time, or whatever. She wanted to come to the set to meet Edward Scissorhands. And you have children.
Yeah.
And when kids are little, you're not sure if maybe they're autistic because they watch the same crap over and over and over again. And they go back and forth. And I'm not sure if my kid, they like to watch the same movies and the same TV shows. My daughter watched Edward Scissorhands 30 times. So now I'm doing this movie Ed Wood with Edward Scissorhands. And my daughter goes, Daddy, I have to go meet him. And I take her to the set, and I swear to God, on my wife's life, so if I'm lying, I still win. I take my daughter to the set, and she meets Johnny, and he could not have been a more of a gentleman. And she says to me, he looks nothing like Edward Scissorhands. Johnny goes to his trailer. He had one of the gloves. He was actually doing a photo shoot that week. And he came out with the gloves and he said, yeah, you want a haircut, kid? You want a haircut? And he starts chasing my daughter and she's screaming. That's when you needed cell phones with cameras, because it was a moment that
You didn't get a shot.
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
But I showed you. I got a shot of Robert Englund.
That's a good one.
We'll
put it up. We'll put it up on social media.
Yeah, that was
shot
a
of
great
you and
one.
your daughter and Robert Englund.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked with Robert in The Adventures of Ford Fairlane.
Oh, my God. The movie that you got my part.
Yes.
Scumbag.
How did he get your
I thought
part?
it was Howard Stern's part, but he didn't want
Well,
it.
you know what? I forgot about that. Well, Gilbert should have got it. No, but I don't get very many movies, and everything I read for, I'm talking about this in my book, which I'm not going to plug now because it's not done. But it's basically called 40 Years of Showbiz Hell, because I've come so close to getting so many things, and 3 times, again, not exaggerating, on my wife's life, once again, I lost at least twice. I'm exaggerating. I lost a part to 2 big fat black guys. Now, if I lose, okay, when I lose a part to you, I'm going, okay, he's a short, psychotic Jew. Okay, he's different than me, but we're close enough where, oh, God damn it. But a big fat black guy.
Johnny Brown from Good Times beat you out of...
They went a whole different way. But the Ford Fairlane part, you played the disc jockey, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I've lost a few parts to you. But the one thing, you do a lot of voiceover work. Do you remember, I asked you this before we started the show, did you ever remember reading for the part of the Pink Panther when they made him talk?
No, I never, I don't think I ever read for that.
Really?
So there's one you didn't lose to him, Bob.
Yeah.
Well,
Tell us about that,
I
brother.
will tell you, Frank. That the Pink Panther, never spoke, as we know. So they did, right after Roger Rabbit came out, which at the time was groundbreaking animation with live action. I mean, Uncle Remus, and they did, of course, Gene Kelly dancing with, they'd done it before. But when Roger Rabbit came out, it was really, they took it to another level. And when people are interacting with the animated character. So MGM, CBS, came up with this show.
Oh, I remember this.
You do remember this?
Yeah, in the 90s, a guy named Kelly Ward was the guy who developed the show.
It was never shown. It was never shown.
Hey, I'm getting a mental block now.
What?
My character's name in Ford Fairlane, Johnny...
Oh, you got me.
Oh, God.
Wow.
It should have been Johnny Slayton just to put another to twist the knife on my back a little bit more.
No, this is horrible.
Our researcher
Have
will look
someone
it up. But back to the Panther.
Yeah.
And the ill-advised idea to have the Pink Panther speak.
He reminds me of my wife when I'm about to have an orgasm. Did you feed the dog? I know. Right? And the big crescendo of my not really a good story to begin with, Gilbert has to come in and get back to him like it's his show.
He sensed the story wasn't going anywhere.
No, anyway.
Yeah, wait, this is horrible.
Oh,
What's my character, Johnny?
Dara's looking it up. Ford Fairlane.
The part that I should have had, Dara. Look that up.
Johnny Crunch.
Johnny Crunch.
Oh, my God. Now you bring up... I remember
pay
that.
dirt with K-dirt.
Gilbert,
Yes,
Gilbert,
okay.
you're killing me here because I remember paying an acting coach $200. I remember getting into becoming Johnny Crunch. I became the character.
You paid an acting coach?
Just paid.
I think those acting coaches are like the biggest fucking scam.
I think what you
in
said
the
to Gilbert,
world.
you paid for anything already. You don't need acting coach attached to that. Just you paid.
Yeah.
That right there, he's freaking out.
Paid for a can of soda.
Let me see if I have this right.
Hey,
you paid for an acting coach to get you a shot at a part in Ford Fairlane that Gilbert got.
Yeah, and I didn't pay and got the part.
I know.
Now listen to me.
Twist the knife more.
Much like me.
Can we have some salt? I get a little cut right
Yes.
here. Can you bring some salt into the studio?
Much like me, you don't like Hammer films all that much.
Let's get back to monsters. That's sacrilegious to real monster people.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, now you and I, like I said, we grew up with Killer Theater, $1 million movie, which would have the giant behemoth, Mothra, and it came from beneath the sea, all that Harryhausen stuff. Which, by the way,
we talked about that.
Loads of fun.
the Harryhausen, he was a god. I know Willis O'Brien and Marcel Delgado before that, but basically Harryhausen with us, one of the greatest things in the history of film is.
Well, Harryhausen was I think, a disciple of Willis O'Brien.
I believe that's true.
And Mighty Joe Young, they worked together.
Yes.
And Marcel Delgado, who did a lot of the silent film stuff, and Willis O'Brien in The Lost World. But what Harryhausen did, it's almost like the Rolling Stones. Yeah, you took from Chuck Berry, and yeah, you took from Robert Johnson, but you took it to another level, and you're better than them.
He did.
But if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be where you are. But, you know, what Ray Harryhausen did, I think the three of us will agree on one thing. The skeletons in Jason and the
Oh,
Argonauts.
it's terrifying.
The
was not only
sword-fighting
terrifying,
skeletons.
But to do that, Gilbert and I'm speaking for Gilbert right now, I don't think we could sit for more than 10 minutes on one conversation. Can you imagine sitting in your garage with 30 skeletons that are falling apart under a hot lamp with your wife yelling, "It's time for dinner!" and trying to get this done? Fighting?
In search of a
I
segue.
heard in that remake of The Lost World with Claude Rains. Claude Rains. They did a remake of The Lost World, and it was in color, like Technicolor, and I think Pat Boone may have been in it. But
And Claude Rains, you
I
didn't
remember
see.
Pat Boone in Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe
was he-
that's
yeah.
it. Yeah,
That's with
maybe
the
that's
wait,
it.
was that
Yeah,
with the rat bat spider? No, that's Angry
but
Planet.
the remake
Right.
of The Lost World with Claude Rains as the professor, which was awful. And I heard that they hired Willis O'Brien for it. He was looking forward to doing it. Like now he'd have all the money to do the stuff he really wanted. And they basically just wanted his name there. And they put in those fucking filmed lizards.
Oh, yeah.
I hated
that was horrible. That was horrible.
I hate, as a little kid, I'd get mad when they'd have like a little lizard.
The salamanders, and they
Yeah.
put a little thing on his neck like
Yeah.
so it looked like a
Yes,
velociraptor.
yes.
They taped it on. But they did that in The Lost World. They did the same crap. It was awful, you know? And then you got the Corman movies. He did Teenage Caveman with Robert Vaughn.
No,
Yeah,
but in the original silent Lost World, they were
That
doing
was-
stop action.
They were amazing. Was
Which-
that Willis? Or was that
that was Willis O'Brien,
Teenage
an
Caveman.
amazing
But
stuff.
Harryhausen, when he did that stuff, and to this day, I will still watch it. And
You even like the latter day Harryhausen, like the Clash of the Titans and
no,
that stuff? when-
I don't. I didn't like the movies, but I like when he redid, and he did. You know, his animation was just so cool, and I still, when they started doing the Mummy with all the 1,000 mummies and that computer animation crap.
Yeah.
But when I moved to San Francisco, I started doing stand-up I moved there when I was 21, back in the 70s. And I wanted to see all these things in San Francisco. I wanted to see Haight-Ashbury. The first thing I wanted to see was the ferry building with the octopus, and it came from beneath the sea.
yeah.
And his arm went down Market Street. Fast forward 30 years later, I take my daughter, Natasha. She's 5 years old. I take her to New York. We go to the Empire State Building. She says to me, "Daddy, where did King Kong, which side did he walk up? Which side of the building did King Kong walk up?" And I said, this is my daughter.
That's your kid.
I turned my daughter on to so many horror movies. I don't know. I'm sure you've tried to do that with your children.
Oh, yeah.
Had your wife stopped you at all?
My proudest moment with my son
Yeah.
was he was watching the Three Stooges, and I think he was like 4 or 5 at the time. He's watching the Three Stooges, and very seriously he says, "Shemp looks like Lon Chaney Jr. and the Wolfman."
How great is that?
And I thought, you don't need any DNA testing after that.
Okay.
That's my kid.
The greatest thing my daughter ever said, and she was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I actually tried to put it in my act, but nobody would laugh at this but you two. My daughter, we're watching King Kong for the 10th time, and my daughter says to me, "Daddy, why would they take a gorilla back from Skull Island when you can get a dinosaur? I've seen gorillas." How great is that of a line?
That is
classic.
perfect.
Really? And then I said, why would you take a gorilla back? I mean, look, if you found out that there was a 50-foot gorilla or a brontosaurus or a T-Rex, and then I said, well, a T-Rex can't walk up the Empire State Building, there'd be no story. I mean, if you're really going to sit and reason this moronic conversation out, but the fact that she said that, and you know what scared her more than anything? Me and Frank were talking about this the other day. The House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, Roger Corman.
Right. The one in Emerjo where they would bring the. I think that was
the Tingler they did.
No, the Tingler was in that was the one where they
Tingler,
wired
that was
the seat.
buzzer under the
buzzer.
seat.
Emergent
yeah.
was when they had the
You're
ghost
right.
that came
And
out
was
on the clothesline.
Well, that was before our time.
Right.
Well, I
Well,
read about that.
They did it at the Film Forum about
You hear
10
about
years
that
ago.
in Famous Monsters. You'd read about that.
Oh, yes.
Speaking of your son, tell Bobby what happened when Max met Sarah Karloff at the convention.
I was doing like a convention, and Sarah Karloff was there at the convention. I was visiting one of these conventions. Sarah Karloff was there, Boris's daughter.
Right.
And, it was all like pictures of him as the Frankenstein monster. And I said to my son, was about 3 or 4, I said, "Oh, this is Boris Karloff's daughter." And he looked at the Frankenstein picture and goes, "You don't look like your father."
That's great. That's great. The fact you guys are horror fans, I showed you before we went on, I have a picture on my phone, a phone case of Karloff from the original Frankenstein.
I'd also like to point out to our listeners that you're sitting here in a Rondo Hatton T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. By the way, this T-shirt I've not worn since I went to a Schiller convention in New Jersey, maybe 10 years ago, where I bought an original Basil Gogos painting, charcoal drawing of the creature, which is still to this day my most prized possession.
And
bless your heart.
If you don't know Rondo Hatton, the most recent
turn off this show.
That's
the
right.
most recent
Shame on you.
movie would be the Rocketeer.
Rocketeer.
The Rocketeer.
Where
That's
they
right.
made up a guy to look like Rondo Hatton.
I thought that was so
who
cool.
died of acromegaly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
right.
Mickey Dolenz, his mother. We had him on, and he said his mother worked with Rondo Hatton.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
His mother was an actress. I can't remember what film.
That's why Mickey has that big chin.
Right.
And,
That
okay,
she's living Leno.
here's a story I heard that the English guy from the Jeffersons.
Oh, Paul Benedict.
Yes,
yeah.
I heard he was doing a play or something, and a doctor came up to him afterwards and said, "I was watching you in the play," and he figures he wants an autograph. And he goes, "I think you may have acromegaly."
Yeah, we've told that on the show.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, because he had like a long face and big hands and all that stuff.
A long face. Maybe he was just sad.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't like the play.
A guy
that was
walks
too obvious. I'm sorry.
A guy with acromegaly walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Why the long face?"
By the way, can you imagine if Gilbert wasn't drunk, how great the show would be? By the
They
way,
have wine here.
I felt when I wore this shirt and I said to both of you, and I insulted you. I go, you know what this is? You couldn't have said Rondo Hatton. Alice Cooper, the same way. I wore this years ago when I met Alice, because I'm a big Alice Cooper fan, and as soon as I walked backstage, Rondo Hatton the Creeper.
Right.
You're not going to get that from a lot of women, aren't going to know stuff like that.
I know Rondo Hatton from a Drew Friedman strip.
Now,
Just to shout out one of our guests.
another guy I want to get on the show. There's a guy from Metallica.
His collection's great. Kirk Hammett.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's supposed to be a monster freak.
Oh my God. He's got. You knew you should have on. He lives in L.A. Ron Borst. You know Ron Borst? You must know. Ron Borst was friends with Forey Ackerman. Famous.
Oh,
monster.
okay, sure.
And Ron has the complete. He has a store, Hollywood Book and Poster. There's 2 stores. Yeah, I think it's Hollywood. Hollywood Book and Poster. I used to buy posters from him back in the 70s. And I used to buy a lot of horror movie posters. And I bought a Plan 9 from Outer Space for like $20. And I remember paying like $50 for Attack of the 54.
And how much did you pay that acting coach?
That's what else.
For the part you didn't get.
And it wasn't. I just wanted to get.
I just want to keep bringing that up.
And the funny thing was, I'm not sure the part even paid as much as I paid that acting.
For my Johnny Crunch part that I didn't pay a dime for, and you paid $200.
It might have only been $100. It does. I don't remember. He'll never let me forget this.
No.
Hey. And another thing we have in common is we both love Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
The greatest movie. Dana Carvey, too. Favorite movie of all time. The greatest movie. That's one movie I watch with my daughter. Did your kids watch that a lot?
No, I don't think they've seen it yet.
How can
I
show that to them?
have to show that to them.
Bob made an argument yesterday on the phone that it's the greatest American film.
of all time.
Yeah.
It's my favorite movie of all time. Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. I mean, look, we all love Abbott and Costello. First of all, tell me a better Abbott and Costello movie than
No. That's
I like
number
the time of their lives.
You know, Time of Lives.
But that's just
Time of Lives is great.
Yeah.
When he couldn't walk through the door.
Yeah, I like that one because it's sweet and well made.
Wistful Widow of Wagging Gap. Tell me, my soup speaks for itself.
With Marjorie Main.
Yeah. I know. I love all
There is I laugh at Abbott the most when I watch Abbott and Costello. He's totally underrated.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
How funny Abbott is. And there's one part where they're doing the thing where Costello is trying to explain Frankenstein and Dracula, and and he's like waving his arms around like Frankenstein, like Dracula. And Abbott at one point just goes, Okay, put your hands down.
For no reason.
If you notice,
Great.
he calls him Abbott instead of Chick. He goes, Abbott! Chick! And then he goes, Abbott!
Oh, that's great. I never caught it.
There was a lot of, and I got to admit, I went on IMDb and I noticed, but even when I was a kid, I noticed the fact that Lugosi, Dracula, twice, his reflection was in the mirror. As a kid, I noticed that.
You've seen it so many times, you're finding the gaps.
When he walks down the steps, you see his reflection in the mirror. And when he's up there with Sandra, and she's about to hypnotize him, and she's just sitting there.
He leans in to her, and
his reflections in the mirror up there. And you know the famous thing in Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, that there was a scene where, the monster, Glenn Strange had hurt his back, so it was Lon Chaney Jr.
Right.
It was a monster throwing the nurse out the window.
Yeah, and that's where he kind of swings his arms back and forth.
Well, Gilbert and I talked that it's actually scary for a comedy when you're a kid. When he picks up that nurse, and tosses her out the window, it's scary. It's actually scary.
Yeah, that scene where he throws her out the window, that was Lon Chaney Jr.
It was really
the only thing missing in that movie is Karloff.
Well,
but it's picky-uni.
If you really want to be picky, the only thing missing, and it's fine, is Claude Rains' Invisible Man and not Vincent Price.
Instead of Vincent Price.
They couldn't get Claude Rains. He was that busy. Was Herbert Lom taking his job? What was he so busy doing?
Herbert Lom.
This is important. Herbert Lom was a Jew.
Oh, good. Let me make a note of that.
As was Peter Sellers. Okay.
Well, that I knew.
Was Peter Sellers a Jew? Sometimes
in honor of Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
By the way, I wish we could have done this at the Friars Club. I know they were booked, but I think that would have been more distracting. I like the fact that we're in this little solitary studio. But Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. When my daughter was little, we watched this movie over and over and over again. And the fact that Karloff didn't do it, I mean, it was just Glenn Strange was fine, but people would say
the bartender from Gunsmoke.
Yeah, bartender.
Strange,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He didn't have much to do.
He was on the cover of Famous Monsters a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And when you were a kid, he was still really scary. But, Carlos never goes, yes, master. No. That's where I think that whole Aurora Monsters thing with the arms stretched out, because Karloff never acted like that.
Yeah.
Gilbert's got a poster in his living room.
It started. Where it started, the outstretched arms was Lugosi in Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
Oh, was that horrible?
Because he's supposed to be blind, was originally
Is that
in
true?
the script.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
that's great.
In Ghost of Frankenstein, the monster goes blind at the end because the brain doesn't match the blood. And, and Igor's brain is in the body, and it's like, Frankenstein, you played on me a trick. What good is a body without eyes to see? And so in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, the script was originally that he's blind. And that's why he's walking with outstretched arms.
Yeah, well, who's blind? The guy that wrote the script and directed it. Those are in real life.
It's not good.
And you know what? After Son of Frankenstein, I can see where Karloff called it quits because, you think the guy, first of all, in the first Frankenstein movie, he got no credit. The monster?
Yeah. Right, the monster,
mark.
sure.
Question mark. Okay. By the third movie, they put him in a big vest. Probably borrowed from your mother.
Yes.
The vest.
Yes.
It was your mother's coat.
Well, why do you have a vest? They found him, he had this giant... remember that?
Yeah, Karloff hated the vest.
No, you mean that weird fur vest kind of thing?
Yeah, why do you wear the vest?
He said they mucked him up with furs.
He looked like Jerry Garcia with the vest. But by the way, Bride of Frankenstein is one of the few movies where, just like The Godfather 2, where the sequel.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Better
Fantastic.
Yes.
than the first film was genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bride of Frankenstein was great, but I never did really get Dr. Pretorius. I never really did get the little king.
He's very freaky.
With the tweezers.
Once you realized that James Whale was gay, then you understood Pretorius.
You didn't see Gods and Monsters?
And you understood Una O'Connor,
I got
too,
it.
Right.
for that matter.
Right.
I liked it when he came out of the window.
Yeah.
I
like Cloris Leachman as Una O'Connor.
That was great. But there was no reason to do. Sometimes like Weekend at Bernie's 2 was better than Weekend at Bernie's 1. Who doesn't like Weekend at Bernie's 2? I'm not taking
now you're going too far.
I'm not taking away from Weekend at Bernie's 1. But 2, and I'm not going to tell you about 3. That would be a spoiler alert. But
Hey,
do
can
that.
you hum the music from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein?
no, but I thought you were going to be the TV show. Da 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 da. With the drive with the skeleton.
No,
Pat Costello.
But in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, it's dun 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 dun.
Oh, God, was that? Oh man.
And I'd also say Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is a better horror movie than House of Dracula. That came before it.
With John Carradine?
Yeah. John Carradine, Glenn Strange, and Janie.
It's a better horror movie than a lot of those sequels.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Fair
to say.
You know what upset me? I can't believe people listen to this. That's why I love your audience, because I don't know
Don't
who else.
assume anything,
I
Bob.
don't know who else would, if I was on any radio show, any podcast, anywhere, people go, "What are these people talking about?" But the fact that
You don't think they're talking
like
about
this shit, I could do this show every day.
You don't think people-
even if you're not here.
You don't think other podcasts are talking about Una O'Connor and Glenn and
Or
Rondo Hatton?
No, but these people.
And before I forget, I'm still searching for Papillon Susu. She was the girl in full metal jacket.
Not Zazu Pitts. No.
That's Zazu Pitts. Huh?
No, that's the part you lost, and you paid $200
I paid
to an acting
$50,
coach to get, and I got it, and I didn't even pay for lunch. I didn't even go to McDonald's.
No, he's trying to find the girl from Full Metal Jacket, the one that says "Me So Horny."
Me so horny.
$5.
Yeah, I'm trying to find her.
It's so funny. That was something. Me so horny, me love you, $5. That was something that stuck in my head over the years. And I finally went to Vietnam, and I wasn't married. And I said, I don't really like hookers, but I went up to one, and she said, $100. And it wasn't $5 anymore. It went up to $100.
Sad. Inflation. It's sad.
Obama.
Yeah.
Fucking Obama.
That's major inflation. A Vietnamese hooker for $100.
And I paid for the acting coach. And what do I have no money?
Yeah.
I pay for everything.
Back then, Vietnamese hooker would have been like 5 cents for a month.
5 cents.
Yeah.
But you know what's great, though? Let me ask you this, Gilbert. And Frank, you can chime in anytime.
No, I don't want Frank to talk.
I'm just watching.
Please.
The fact with your podcast.
Don't ask Frank to say anything. Okay.
Don't you love having people on your podcast or meeting people or working with people that those oddball characters you work with? I've done a lot of movies and I've worked with a lot of major stars, and so have you. But I remember when I first went to LA and I did a couple of TV shows and I met some famous people, and it was great. You're young. But I remember driving down Santa Monica Boulevard and stopping at a light, and there's Otis Campbell, Otis the Drunk, Hal Smith.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking about, I guess, late 70s.
Yeah.
And he still looked like Otis.
Yeah.
Because he really had become Otis.
Yeah.
Probably in the 50s or 60s when he played Otis, it's like Captain Kangaroo. He always looked old.
Yeah.
But the older he got, the less makeup he had to put on. Yeah. By the time Captain Kangaroo died, he really looked like Captain Kangaroo.
He worked a lot, Hal Smith.
Yeah.
What was horrible? When they did the TV movie Return to Mayberry, where they brought back all the original cast.
Oh, I remember that.
And Otis now had given up drinking.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
PC.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
He's in The Great Race, another movie that we've talked about on
The
this
Great
show.
Race with
Hal Smith shows up as the mayor of the western town,
God.
Baracho.
But when I pulled up next to him, he goes, I go, Otis. And he was thrilled. He goes, how do you know me? I go, because you're Otis. You know? And I like seeing those guys. You know, right before he died, you know, in L.A., when I shop at Gelson's, I would see at least once a week Kevin McCarthy.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
You know, in his 80s. And I could not help but do this, and I'm sorry, but I'd see him, and I go, they're here! They're here!
Well, now you got it.
Wait, it gets better. It gets better. So my wife goes, why do you do stupid things like that? My daughter would get so embarrassed. Okay, so one time I'm in Gelson's, and Kevin McCarthy, I think he's looking for for garlic or something. They were out of garlic, and the guy says, "I got to go get some more garlic in the back." I said, "It's here! It's here! The garlic!" And you're next. And
I'm sure no one ever yelled that at him.
No,
I used to pull that shit in L.A.
You know, in the Aristocrats, in one part, I said they did the whole thing. This
I'm an aristocrat
yes,
too.
yes.
I just want to let you know. Are you Frank an aristocrat?
I am not.
Then
Bob.
you stop. You're not part of this.
And I said in one of the variations, I'm talking, guys fucking the dog, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And I said, this is a common practice in the house of character actor Kevin McCarthy. So somebody who worked on the Aristocrats knew Kevin McCarthy. He was 100 at the time.
Right.
And he told him this. And he says, he talks about, fucking his daughter and getting blown by his son. And he says, this is common practice from character actor Kevin McCarthy. And Kevin McCarthy said, well, that's offensive. And he goes, well, yeah, Gilbert has a habit. And he goes, I'm not a character actor. I'm a lead.
Don't you love that?
Wow. When I first met Shelley Berman, and I should have said it because he was a very eccentric kind of. I was playing the improv in San Francisco when there was an improv, and Shelley came in. I go, didn't you used to be Shelley Berman? He goes, what do you mean? I go, no. I probably should have said that to him.
Yeah.
As long as we're talking about old comics, I mean, you hung out with Buddy Hackett, with Rickles. You told me you had a Hackett story.
I have a Hackett. Oh God, this is a great Hackett story. Because Gilbert, you love the old comics.
Oh,
we all do.
Yes.
And again, when I called Milton Berle an asshole earlier, the one Saturday Night Live that Lorne Michaels refused to release, and I think I asked Bill Murray about it when I met him. That Berle came on.
It's finally on the box set. It finally came out.
It did come out.
Yeah, finally.
And I don't know how it looked after, but he's telling everybody what to do, where to put the lights. I know you missed the television, but you know what? These guys know what to do. They have a successful TV show. So, Buddy Hackett, I have never been a fan of the Friars Club roast. Not the ones, I know that's your specialty, but where I always had a problem was I did one with Hal Roach, and I did one with Mickey Rooney, and I did one with Jackie Cooper, and I go, who am I to make fun of these people? Now you became, and I love when you do it. You're the highlight of those. And the late, great Greg Giraldo and Jeff Frost.
Yeah,
it's
Greg
great.
was great.
And I don't, it's fine when you're, and you probably can understand this, when you're making fun of fellow comics, but when you're making fun of showbiz icons, how do you, you know what I mean?
I heard that's the reason Don Rickles was always putting off those roasts, because he figured, everybody he worked with is dead.
Exactly. When he made fun of Sinatra, and Reagan made fun of Lucille Ball, and when these people were all peers. So I remember when I did the few at the Beverly Hilton in L.A., we did one for Hal Roach, and there's, like I said, there's Red Buttons, there's Buddy Hackett, and I go, who the fuck am I to make jokes about these people?
And I remember when Dean Martin was doing them, where it was like a weekly show.
Right.
And that, you'd see Gary Coleman roasting Orson Welles.
LaWanda Page.
Okay.
Yeah. Hitting Orson Welles with a perp.
That's right. She does. Ruth Buzzy hits Orson Welles with a perp. She hits Sinatra.
Yeah.
Almost knocked his piece off.
That was. Yeah. So I didn't like to do that. So I'm up on that dais, and here's what I hate too. You're making fun, and then you have to sit up there for hours, and everybody's sitting up there and they're making fun of each other. So I'm roasting. I got my stuff written. I think it was Hal Roach or Jackie Cooper, and I'm doing the thing. And I'm just trying to get through this, and it's going okay, as I recall. And the one or two jokes I had, Buddy Hackett was sitting there, and he might have been a little buzzed. It's okay. And he stepped on my joke, which I didn't care. It's fine. You got to laugh. Whatever. I just want everything went fine. The next day, Buddy Hackett calls me up, and he says, listen, I'm sorry that I ruined your... I go, it was fine. He goes, no, I really feel bad because, you know what, you're a young comic, and I should have been making fun of you. I said, if you really feel that bad, buddy, you should take me out to lunch. Because I want Buddy Hackett to take me out to lunch.
Yeah.
Okay. So it happened to... This is great. It happened to be a week where I like to drink, and I drink a bottle of wine every night. I cook dinner, and when I play comedy clubs, I'll knock up a bottle of vodka for a week. But I had a week where I wasn't drinking, and I was going to the gym every day. I hired a personal trainer. Between that and my acting coach, Gilbert, I had nothing left. I had nothing left but my health.
And you hired that trainer for Fort Fairlane.
Right. I just wanted to be able to beat you up for getting that part. So I call up Buddy Hackett. You know, I'm in the Valleys and Beverly Hills, right over there. And I said, where do you want to go for lunch? She goes, why don't you come to my house tomorrow at noon? I will go to lunch from there. And I'm thinking, well, it's kind of, I can just meet you somewhere. I had worked out. I took a shower, feeling great. Hadn't drank in 5 days, which is a lot for me. I go to Buddy Hackett's house. I knock on the door. I go in there. The blinds are drawn. He's sitting there in the living room with Louis Nye. Okay.
The story just gets better.
Here's what's great about Buddy Hackett's house. And I've never been to your house, Gilbert, but if you want to have a couple of posters up, I remember the late, great Rich Jenny. People said they'd go to his house and his American Comedy Award is sitting there as soon as you walk in. You know, if you're a real actor, and a lot of people don't even... you want to have a display room and a display case, but as soon as people walk in, we know who you are. We know what you've done. Buddy Hackett's house, it's all white. It's a real Jew-Italian thing.
Yeah.
White carpet. Everything's white. It's really, it's horrible. It's
like THX 1138.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What it was like. Okay. And he has Rolodexes on the bar of him with all the pictures. The entire living room. I'm talking about a living room. Pictures of him with Carson. We know what you've done. And him and Louis are sitting in the living room with a giant bottle. They have glasses full of booze. But he says, hey, so what are you drinking? I said, you know what? I'm actually not drinking this week. I just want to go to lunch. And he said, well, when you drink, what do you drink? I go, I drink vodka. He goes to the bar. He pours me, not a giant tumbler, a lemonade jug, like it's a big slurpy thing of vodka at noon. And I'm going, and him and Louis, and the blinds, it's like a hideout. It's like after a bank heist, you know? It's like Louis and the boss hiding up from Superman. It's a beautiful sunny day out. So they're drinking, and I take a couple of sips of vodka, and I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I can. I want to get out of there. Let's go have lunch. And Buddy goes, well, we're going to go to this Chinese restaurant that I love. So I'm thinking, it's Beverly Hills. It's going to be a Beverly Hills Chinese restaurant. And he goes, no. It's way downtown. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? This got to be one of the best restaurants. If he's going to make me schlep downtown or Koreatown to a Chinese restaurant, like, because Beverly Hills or whatever, there's a million great Santa Monica. And I said, you know what? Let me just follow you there, Joey. And he's, Buddy, he says, because I got a chill, remind me of a Joey Bishop story. He goes, you'll never be able to follow me. I drive too fast. He goes, let me give you the directions, and you'll meet me there whenever you get there. And now I'm pissed. What do you mean I can't follow you? You drive too fast. So he goes to the bathroom to take a leak. I said, I'll meet you at the restaurant. And I run out the door. I said, I'm not going to let this prick beat me there, okay? And I drove as fast as I could. What do you mean, I can't follow you? You drive, what am I, a girl? So I get in my car, and I drive to Koreatown, and I drive as fast as I can. I didn't care if I got a ticket. I want to beat him to the restaurant. And in L.A., I made every light. I went 80 miles an hour, and I get to the restaurant. 3 seconds later, he pulls up behind me. I'm going, how fucking... He took a leak, and he's still there at the same time as me. This guy's a lunatic. And I walk into the restaurant. I go, this place is going to be terrific. And I walk in, and there's pictures of Buddy Hackett all over the restaurant. And all the menu is beef and broccoli, wonton soup. It's the same shit you can get anywhere, but it's a great restaurant because there's pictures of Buddy Hackett all over the joint.
Hilarious.
I heard a Buddy Hackett story where Buddy Hackett was talking to one of his friends in the lobby of a Las Vegas hotel, casino. And some young comic walks over and he goes, oh, Mr. Hackett, this is my big break. I'm doing a week in Vegas, and I just started yesterday. And Hackett goes, oh, yeah, I saw you yesterday. You were really good. But let me give you some advice. Don't do a delivery. Just recite the jokes. Don't worry about it. Just recite them like you're reading them off the page. And then he goes, oh, okay, I'll try that tonight. And when he walks off, Buddy Hackett says to his friend, he is going to bomb so bad.
And I hate to badmouth these guys because they're the guys that paved the way for us. But another guy,
could you forgive him for Bud and Lou?
What?
Could you forgive?
God, Bud and Lou. You know who should have played?
Shecky.
No, they should instead of Glenn Strange. They should have got Glenn Strange. He would have been better. Glenn Strange would have been better.
And Dwight Fry.
Check. But you know who else was not a nice guy? And I hate to talk about these guys.
Go ahead.
Was Joey Bishop when I played him in the Rat Pack. Joey. You ever meet Joey?
No, I never met. I heard he was a scumbag.
The
Rat Pack movie on HBO. With Ray Liotta.
So when I went to audition for that, it was the only. I didn't get an acting coach because that's the only time I knew. And then Gilbert would not have got this part. He couldn't beat me for this part.
Play Joey
a big
Bishop.
fat black guy I could have lost to, but not Gilbert Gottfried. I could have seen it. They might want it with a black guy, but I'm not losing this to that fucking little Jew. It ain't gonna happen. So when I went to read for the part, Ray Liotta's 42 years old. I'm 42 years old. Frank Sinatra's 42 years old. Joey Bishop's 42 years old. And we all look like we're about 40 to 42 years old. So I went in to read, and they thought, well, Bobby might look a little too old for the part. And I go, what do you mean I'm too old? I look the same age as Ray Liotta. Look, I'm not a girl. I'm not, but I look pretty much the part, the age. So I said, well, have Bobby come back, but maybe he could dye his hair. Not only do I dye my hair, I get that Joey Bishop, my favorite Martian, medieval mad monk do that he had.
Oh, yes.
I got that whole, I got a shark skin suit, a skinny tie. And it wasn't that hard to do Joey Bishop because, I never played a real person. You pretty much played Gilbert. Who else did you play?
Did you ever play a real person, Gilbert? You never did.
Except for Johnny Crunch, who was Gilbert. They should have told me before I spent $200.
Which I got without paying $200 to an acting coach.
Did you ever play a real person?
Well, I was...
In real life, he can't play a real person.
I was Abraham Lincoln in A Million Ways to Die in the West.
On The View.
I was better than Daniel Day-Lewis.
And better than Lincoln. Yeah. So I feel, okay, to become Joey Bishop, I'm going to go to the Museum of Broadcasting. And, I'm thinking of like Robert De Niro and Raging Bull, gaining weight, learning how to box, and when Meryl Streep playing violin, getting a German accent. I am going to become Joey Bishop. And I took a sandwich, and I got my little cubicle, and I started watching Joey Bishop, and in 5 minutes ago, I fucking get this. You talk like a little like, Jackie Mason, hey, it's me, hey, Joe, hey, Dean, hey, Sammy. And I got it. So I go back in, and I sound exactly like him, and I'm reading for the part. But I finally get the part, and I call up Joey, and he didn't think anybody could recreate the Rat Pack, and he said, "There's no way you're ever going to pull this off." And it wasn't just me, but I could see they never consulted him. Frank Sinatra just died. Dean Martin didn't want to have anything to do with it. So, and they never called Joey Bishop. And even though he wasn't really, the fourth head on showbiz Mount Rushmore, it was Dean, Sammy, and Frank. He was like Tito Jackson. He was Bobby Slayton. I was perfect for this part. And Joey just was not nice. I invited him to the premiere, and he'd been a real prick. But you know what? He did send me an 8x10 saying, someday, hopefully, I can play you in a movie. But what was really creepy when we did that movie, and come on, you love showbiz, Vegas lore.
Sure.
I'm thinking, okay, I get this part in the Rat Pack. We're going to go to Vegas and shoot this movie. We'll have an audience out there. But as you know, when you're shooting scenes with audiences, rarely are there audiences. Yeah. There's nobody out there. You're just shooting it on a soundstage. When I did Ed Wood, there were no people out there. Dreamgirls, when I introduced Eddie Murphy, there were a few people out there. But we couldn't shoot anything in Vegas because there was nothing in Vegas that was anything like the old Vegas. The old Vegas, everything took place in 1960 at the Sands Hotel. Remember that cylindrical tower and that iconic Sands, the place in the sun, which the amazing Colossal man destroyed.
That's correct.
Yes.
He destroyed. That's why we couldn't get it. He destroyed it.
That's correct.
I tied this whole show in with
beautifully done.
Off the top of my head, that's how good I am. But the amazing Colossal man, that sign's long gone. But I'll give you another piece of trivia. We couldn't find anything in Vegas, so the producers couldn't find anything in Vegas to shoot because there was nothing that resembled the old Vegas. So they had a stock shot of that famous Sands Tower. The movie took place in 1960 when Kennedy got elected. That tower wasn't built till 62. So even that.
Another gaffe.
Another gaffe.
And tell us about the ambassador.
Oh, my God. You want to hear a great story, Gilbert?
No.
Okay. Darren, get some more Johnny Crunch.
How many more Rondo hats?
Get some more Johnny Crunch info.
Do you have a boring, mediocre story you can tell us? I don't want.
This is
Don't
creepy.
waste a great story.
No, this is a creepy story. A creepy. So do you remember, Gilbert, ever going to the Ambassador Hotel in L.A.? It was the hotel where they had the Academy Awards for 8 years. The Coconut Grove was there.
Yeah,
Merv Griffin,
Coconut Grove.
I think, didn't he buy it or something? They had the Coconut Grove. The Academy Awards were done there in the 30s and 40s. Marilyn Monroe lived there, Ruta Valentino, and they used it for many, many years to shoot movies in. So we're shooting the Rat Pack scenes in the hotel. The hotel is so seedy, it's gone to shit. And I'm walking around the hotel because, things are crumbling. It's like New York. I walked by today, the Subway bar I used to go to. It's closed right across the street from Bloomingdale's.
That was a landmark.
It was a landmark.
Yeah, great bar.
And they're closing more of those places. Remember when we were kids? The luncheonettes, the diners, they're all gone. And this was one of those places in L.A. that, you walk around and it's psychotic. And, so everything was closed up in that hotel except for the lobby, which they were shooting stuff in, and the coffee shop, which they used to do movies. So we're shooting a scene in the Ambassador Hotel of John Kennedy's inauguration party. Frank Sinatra and Peter Lawford were owners of Puccini's restaurant in Beverly Hills. And when Kennedy got elected, they had a big party. So they recreated the scene of me and Ray and Don Cheadle and a big Rat Pack party in Puccini's, which was taking place in the Ambassador Hotel. So during the breaks, I would wander around the hotel and everything say, "Sir, you can't go there, you can't go here, everything's closed off." And I walk into the kitchen where Robert Kennedy got assassinated.
Yeah, in the pantry, right.
When he got assassinated in the pantry.
Yeah.
And the Mexican busboy was holding up his head. We've all seen that picture, when he's dying. So here we are. It's not lost on me that here we are celebrating a scene where one brother's getting elected, where in reality, 30 feet away, there's a little X on the pavement in this cold pantry. And I'm not one of these big ghost guys, but it was really fucking creepy. And this woman comes up from behind me because I work for the hotel. Yeah, that's where he got shot. And that's what Saran came out of. And that was when he said, "Let's move on. We won California." And
Rosie Greer.
Rosie Greer.
Yeah.
And she goes, "That's a dumbwaiter." They put him in as he's dying. And it was just creepy. So she says to me, "You want to see the rest of the hotel?" I said, "Sure." So she takes me down this hallway, and we get in this elevator, and it has not been inspected for 50 years. And I'm going, this rickety, it looks like Berlin after the Blitzkrieg. And, there were the rats. And she takes me up to the top floor, and she walks me into a suite. And the hotel, it was like The Shining. I want to see the dead twins with the blood coming down any moment now. She takes me into a suite. And there was peeling snakeskin wallpaper. She said Sammy Davis lived here towards the end of his life. And in the middle of the living room was a little stage. And I go, "What is this?" She goes, "I don't know." I mean, it was a stage. Because Sammy was obviously, I don't know, he's still performing. He had people coming over. And because, and you realize that Sammy Davis was like the ultimate entertainer. I mean, Michael Jackson, not to take anything away from that guy, but Sammy Davis wrote the book on tap dancing, on playing drums, and Don Cheadle, who played Sammy in that movie, learned how to play drums. I played drums in high school. I was never good, but I played. And Cheadle got me on the drums, and he's playing. I go, "How long have you been doing that?" He goes, "About 3 weeks." And I don't think they even showed him playing the drums. But that's the consummate ultimate actor, that he learned how to play drums and tap dance to become. And that's why he won an Academy Award, and that's why I'm doing this stupid podcast.
Hey, listen.
Okay, now here's my problem.
That's a great ending.
With that movie. Where, whenever there's like a black joke, they have a close-up on Don Cheadle looking like tears are welling up in his eyes as Sammy. And I'm thinking, Sammy probably didn't give a flying
No, he did,
fuck.
though. No, he did. Yeah, because I read every single book ever written and every documentary, because I've always been fascinated by the whole Rat Pack era and all those guys. He was haunted he couldn't play down south. He married a white woman.
Oh, yeah, my Brit.
Oh,
Mae
yeah.
Britt.
Yeah.
And Joe Kennedy, who was a Nazi, that prick, Kennedy's father,
Yep.
barred him from the
scumbag.
wedding. And Frank Sinatra, Frank Sinatra was the one, because Sinatra could be a bully. If you read about the guy,
yeah.
he could be a horrible man. He'd punch somebody out, and then he'd tip you $200. He was an asshole. It's Frank Sinatra's world that you were living in it. But he wouldn't play these hotels unless a black guy could walk through the front door, and he was great about that,
So Sammy actually was upset.
Oh, big time. Of course he was upset. He's married to a white woman. He was...
No, I mean, I understand the stuff in real
Didn't
life.
he date Kim
but,
Novak,
But,
too?
I mean, they're joking on stage.
Yeah.
Like of Dean and Frank.
Right.
What, was he...
No, I don't think he was upset about that.
No, see, that's what they show in the movie, like... They're making jokes about him.
Oh, no. I don't think
yeah.
he cared about that.
Yeah.
I heard that he actually loved that. Here's the award, the NAACP. They did that all that.
That's famous.
To show you what an asshole I am and how I can't act, and to show you why Don Cheadle is an Academy Award winner, we're shooting a scene, and it's a famous Rat Pack. They do the routine where they roll out the liquor cart, and then Dean, like I said, Sammy jumps in his arm. I'd like to thank the NAACP. And then they walk out in their underwear. Right? Remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
And they have the drinks.
Yeah.
Okay. So me and Sammy Davis, Don Cheadle, are supposed to walk out in a minute. And Cheadle says to me, now he's in character. He said, what are they doing out there? What's going on? What are they doing? And he's saying this to me as Sammy. I go, it's in the script. They're in their underwear. And I'm answering him as BobbySlayton, which again why he won an Academy Award. And I'm paying $200 to get a Gilbert Gottfried
listen.
part. I'm an idiot. What do you mean, what are they doing? I don't think I got the wrong script. I'm on the wrong page. I'm a moron.
Now, I heard a story, maybe you're familiar with this, where Frank and Dean beat up the chairman of Hunt's Foods.
Oh, I never heard this.
Yeah, that he was like celebrating with another couple, like their kids were getting married, and Frank and Dean, bombed out of their skulls, were being loud and raucous, and he asked them if they could hold it down a little, and they beat the shit out of this guy, and he crashed through a glass coffee table, and was in a coma for a while, and never pressed charges, which makes it even creepier.
Well, I wonder if
this
Sam
story.
Giancana had it. But you know what, though? What they did was wrong. But if you ever have their catsup, I liked Heinz, and I would go to restaurants, and they'd have that Hunt's ketchup, which is I could see where you'd be a little pissed at the guy.
Is the ambassador all gone now, Bob?
Yes,
Is it all
and
boarded
Donald
up?
Trump, that prick, was going to buy it, and they were trying to save it, preserve it, because half of it was going to be a school, and I think they preserved a little piece of it, but most of it they tore down, and it was really horrible because it was one of those great places.
The landmark. I never went.
Yeah, all those places. When they did that movie Sunset Boulevard, with Norma Desmond.
Oh, yeah.
That house was, and if you're familiar with L.A., both of you.
Sure.
It was right on the corner of Wilshire and right in Westwood, which is now a giant parking lot but the fact that these giant homes were in these places.
Yeah, well, when I got out there, everything was gone. Jason's was gone, and Nicodell's was gone. The Coconut Grove was gone.
Nicodell was great. Nicodell was next to the Paramount.
Yeah.
And Musso and Frank's is still there.
Yeah.
I remember when they tore down Chase's. It wasn't known for its great food later on, and it was old Hollywood. Reagan died.
Yeah,
and and all these old farts, and everybody wants to go to the hip places. Hey, there's a Kardashian.
And the Derby was gone.
The Derby was gone.
The only thing that's left, I think, is Musso's.
There's nothing else left in that town.
Yeah.
And it's almost like New York. It's just so horrible. When I go to these cities, and when my daughter I take her to New York, I'd walk by the Brill Building, and next to Caroline's used to be Hawaii Kai, that tiki bar. I love those places.
And Colony Music.
Colony Music is
forever.
gone.
It goes back to Tin Pan Alley.
God.
Broke my heart when it closed.
Broke my heart, too.
Really did.
And I remember there was a Howard Johnson's on the corner, but all those places, and I never used to go to them, so I'm as guilty as anybody for that. And then when people find out these places are closing, they'll start to go. Palisades Amusement Park swings all day
Swings
and
after dark.
Howard Johnson's in Times Square.
remember that?
Yeah,
had the
sure.
most rancid smelling men's room. But
they had the clam strips.
You would feel the smell on you.
Yeah.
The smell would press down on you.
You can see if you watch Sweet Smell of Success or all those movies in Times Square in the 60s,
yes.
you always see that neon Howard Johnson sign. It's sad. So much of it's gone.
It's sad. The Metropole they closed, which is a really high-class strip joint from like the 1920s and 30s.
They just closed the coffee shop in the Empire Hotel. It'd been there forever.
They closed it, finally.
Yeah.
And the Variety place from the 1920s when they showed silent movies down on, I think, First or Second Avenue.
Yep.
And
the old Jewish theater.
And it's the one thing that we all got to grow up with was those cool places in New York. And, our parents and grandparents really saw them. And you still got Jonas Schimmels, and you still got Russ and Daughters, and you still got Cats.
There's a few things.
How when they closed the Stage Deli,
Even the Ziegfeld's in trouble, which is really heartbreaking because it's the last great New York movie theater.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible. Pretty horrible.
Now, you are friends with Woody Allen and Sid Caesar?
Well, Sid Caesar's dead, so we're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
But you hung with Sid.
What you call him?
Well, Carl Reiner is more of a friend. Not a friend.
But you talk to them.
If I had to move, I wouldn't say, hey, can you help me?
Yeah.
If I need to borrow money, I'd call you before I call them.
Yeah.
That's how friendly
desperate.
we are. Woody, it's interesting. I have, but by the way, the next time we do these comedian dinners, you have to come to one.
Yeah.
Will you come?
Okay.
With Woody.
Yeah. Oh.
You'll come, won't you? I wanted to invite you. I invited you to the last one. I think I had. You were out of town. I looked at your website. You were out of town. Here's what happened with Woody Allen. A friend of mine, a buddy of mine, is good friends with Woody, and he's got this really amazing house right on the Upper East Side, and it's like a half a city block. He's got money. He's friends with Woody, and so I'm playing in Florida about 3 or 4 years ago, and he comes to my show because he also has a home in Florida, and he says to me, Woody Allen's a fan of yours. I go, Woody Allen? He goes, yeah, Woody comes over to my house for dinner a lot. He goes, he's coming over next Friday. And I said, he's coming over next Friday. Now, first of all, I'm on the road all the time, and I wasn't on the road that following Friday, and I was going back to L.A., and I said, if I fly out to New York, can I come to your house? I would never invite myself to somebody's house. But have dinner with Woody Allen. I said, can I fly out and have dinner with you and Woody? He goes, sure. I go, why don't you ask Woody first? He goes, no. Just come to my house. I go, well, who's coming to dinner? He goes, me, Woody, and his wife. And I thought, well, it's kind of creepy. It's a
lot of pressure, too.
It's a lot of pressure. And I said to my wife, and I said to a couple of friends, should I fly all the way? I'm coming up from the West Palm Improv. Should I fly back 5 days later? And Gilbert, like you, I'm going, this ticket's going to cost me a fortune. I'm not going to, yeah. I don't get a year in advance. I know you buy your tickets. I can't even get a 21-day advance purchase. And so I got a good deal on a ticket, and my friend said, I'll even put you up in a hotel. Come back. I go, you know what? I can't pass this up. So I went to dinner with Woody and his wife, and I said, I'm not going to ask him about his movies. I don't really give a rat's ass about the Knicks. I know he's a sports fan, but I know that Woody likes jazz, and I like the blues, and we'll talk about that. But when I started out in San Francisco in the 70s, Woody, even though he's a New York guy, started out in the 60s, and he started out, the Purple Onion, the Hungry Eye. So he was also kind of a San Francisco comic, along with the Smothered Brothers, Phyllis Diller, Jonathan Winters, of course, Lenny Bruce and Mort Saul. And we had a lot of mutual friends because when those people all died or moved on, we went to the same restaurants. So, we sat there, and Sunyi doesn't talk a lot. Woody doesn't talk a lot. My friend Jeff doesn't talk a lot. So I'm going to have to do all the talking here. Anyway, it went great. And before you know it, it's a 3-hour dinner. And Woody, once he gets to know you, really he's like Gilbert. Gilbert's very shy. But if you know Gilbert, which nobody does, but if they did, he would talk. I hear he would talk. His wife said.
It's true.
His wife said he talked like once in a while.
I liked him better when he didn't talk. Yeah. What did you guys talk about? You talk about the old San Francisco clubs in the old days?
They talked about me the whole time.
But anyway, so we had a 3-hour, and Woody's a very, really great, relaxed man. And we talked about the Marx Brothers a lot, and Charlie Chaplin and Harold Lloyd. And he's like, because he's such a big fan of those people. And we talked about the Marx Brothers movies, about comedy, and the fact that I'm friends with Carl Reiner. And it's weird because he hasn't talked to Carl in so many years, and they all worked together.
They were writers on his staff.
They were writers. Yeah. He wrote, have you talked to Mel Brooks? He was not in 20, 30 years. And I just talked to Tommy Smothers, and Tommy Smothers said to me, tell Woody I said hello, and they hadn't talked in years. So I don't know. Woody's so busy writing all these movies and directing that's all he does, is write and direct movies. And I told him I was writing a book. And I remember saying to him, I'm writing a book, and if not for my iPad, I don't know how I do this. He goes, you like that iPad? I go, yeah. He still writes every movie on the typewriter.
Oh, the manual typewriter, not even an electric
typewriter.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do you even find ribbons? He said to me, and I can't believe this is true, but this is what Woody told me. He said, I have this guy come over, and he goes, he's not really that friendly with him anymore, but he's the only guy that really knows how to change your ribbons on my typewriter. You would think for 50 years, Woody would have that down. And I don't even know where you get typewriter ribbons, but he gets them, and he's still typing. Anyway, so we had this dinner. And Woody's not, really in character. And I must have gotten up to pee 4 or 5 times because I'm 60. I must have knocked off a bottle of wine. And Woody never got up to pee one time. And as we're leaving, I said to him, it's amazing to me. You're this old. You're drinking 2 or 3 beers. You didn't get to pee once during dinner. And that's when he became Woody Allen. That's one of my attributes. I don't pee. So he had such a good time, and my friend calls me up and goes, Woody had a great time. We got to do this again with some other comedians. You know any other comedians? And I go, well, put together comedians. First of all, I'm an L.A. guy, and I come to New York. I go, I know Chris Rock. I kind of know Gilbert. I don't really hang out with these people. He goes, well, see who you can get over. So I did for everybody to be in town at the same time. So I put together another dinner, and Lewis Black happened to be in town, and David Brenner in town, and still alive at the time. And so I invite those 2 guys over, and Woody brings over Dick Cavett, who we also grew up with. And these guys are friends since they were 20, and they both love magic.
Sure.
And in the middle of dinner, David Blaine shows up. And after dinner, David Blaine starts showing us magic tricks. Now, to shut up Dick Cavett, me, and Lewis Black, and David Brenner for 45 minutes to do magic tricks. It was one of those magical it was just great. So then we did it again. I think Jackie Martling, Jay Thomas came over, Nick DiPaolo, and my friend said, you got to invite over Gilbert, and you were out of town. By the way, to tell your wife, because I know she'd like to go, it's no women. It's just guys. But I saw my friend Jeff today, and I go, I'm doing Gilbert's podcast. He goes, you got to have Gilbert over next time we do a dinner. I said, Gilbert's not coming over without his wife, or he won't talk. He needs somebody he knows.
His interpreter.
He kind of knows her. So you got to, Darry, you got to pass.
He comes with Marley Matlin's interpreter.
Because you'll make Gilbert talk. You'll poke him. You'll do what you have to do. You slip him some money, you make him talk.
Gil, you got to go.
Yeah.
But I brought my wife last time, and it was great. We're just hanging out with these guys. Because there's not a lot of them left,
Yeah, it's true. We had Cavett on the show. He was great.
He's great, isn't he?
Yeah, the
before
best.
he passed away.
He wasn't Jewish.
No, definitely not.
As we're winding down, Bob, you want to tell Gilbert about, you want to talk about either the Gong Show or being on Sandy Becker when you were a kid?
Sandy Becker. Yeah, I heard Sandy Becker hated kids. And I don't think anybody...
I saw Sandy Becker in some interview, like on Channel 13 or something, where I couldn't believe what a pretentious prick he sounded like.
He was one of those guys, though. If you look back at the few kinescopes that are still around, Norton, Nork, and all these things he did. If you go to my website, not that anybody cares, BobbySlayton.com, there's a picture of me with, I don't know if you remember this, but about 1959, before he did the Norton, Nork, and he had Shotzi the dog, he would interview 2 kids, and I sang Popeye the Sailor Man, and he would show cartoons for half an hour. And it was a WNEW. I remember seeing the Doobie and the Don't Be in a romper room.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big thing when you're 5. And I heard years later that Sandy Becker didn't like kids. He had a collection of German guns and Lugers, which is fine. Nothing wrong with Nazi stuff. But Andy Kaufman, when I met him one night at the Improv in L.A., we're talking about Howdy Doody. Andy was, Andy. And I told him I was on the Sandy Becker show, and I heard he didn't like children. I heard that from a lot of people, that he hated being Sandy Becker. And Andy almost started crying. What do you mean? What do you mean? I thought he was kidding, but he wasn't kidding. Like people think you're kidding, but you're not kidding.
No, he does hate children.
Is that really Gilbert? Oh, by the way, before we go, here's one thing I do have to tell you. Here's what we have to end with. I've been married to the same woman for 27 years, and my wife is gorgeous. And I have a beautiful daughter, Natasha.
And your daughter's in the business, too,
My
we
daughter's
should
in the
say.
business.
Right.
I didn't even get to tell you the story about how when she was an actress at 9, she was at Universal Studios, and I would go to the tapings. She had her own parking spot at 9 years old at Universal, and we'd walk over to the Psycho house, and we'd sit on the steps, and she'd go over her lines on Norman Bates' house, and then we'd walk down to the Transylvania Square, and I'd go home, and I'd show her the movie where the father's carrying Maria's body.
Yes.
I said, we were there today. We were there today, Natasha. And I said, someday you can appreciate this. And she loved it. And I took her to stage 28 where they filmed Phantom of the Opera. And, the thing about
That's
Universal
cool.
is there's a few little things left, but you know what? It's almost like New York. You go to stage 28 and you walk in there, and I walked in there with my daughter, and I went to the Abbott and Costello stage, and I walked into stage 28, and I said, this is where they shot the Phantom of the Opera, I think in 1920, whatever. I think it's stage 28. And you walk in there, and you go, I think they were doing a Jamie Kennedy movie. I go, fuck, this is really...
Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah, that was like going to Auschwitz and seeing graffiti on going to a Jewish cemetery and seeing it defaced. I felt like I was in a Jewish cemetery at Bitburg with his Nazi soldiers, and but it was like, God, this was.
I remember being at a studio, and I don't think it was even Columbia. I don't know, but I
Where they
was
did the
at a
Stooges.
studio. Yeah, with the Stooges. Well, we were doing a show, and they said that the Stooges used to do their shorts there.
Yeah, that's probably Columbia, which is now Sony Pictures.
Poverty Row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you go over. There's a school right there where Alfalfa and Spanky went to school. That was, but anyway, what I was going to tell you. I know we gotta go.
Amazingly, the Stooges were Jewish.
Yeah, really?
Who could
that we
have
know?
figured that out?
By the way,
They don't look it.
One of the funniest things ever. I look back at a lot of the Stooges, and I'm still a major Stooges fan. What always pissed me off is when you watch Ghost Breakers with Bob Hope, which was great, and it was always disappointing as a kid because we all love Martin and Lewis. When they did Scared Stiff, it could have been so much scarier. It could have been Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, and it wasn't. But to this day, one of the things that still makes me laugh, and I saw it, and I wasn't stoned. I don't smoke pot anymore. But the greatest thing was when the Bowery Boys or the Stooges or Hold That Ghost, when they went to a haunted house.
Oh, hold that ghost.
Yeah. Bowery Boys meet
with
the
with the money in Moose's head.
Oh, but one of the greatest things ever was the Three Stooges when they're in that haunted house and the parrot walks into the skull and starts flying around.
Yes.
The flying skull.
It's great.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
It still makes me laugh. And even my daughter, when she was 7, goes, "What are you, an idiot?" Even my daughter, this is fun. The flying parrot skull. I love
What
that.
do you want to close with? Sammy Petrillo?
Oh, no. Here's what I want to tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, God. No, what I wanted to say was I got a beautiful wife and a beautiful daughter, and for years, people have said to me, every time they meet my wife, how is she married to you? How have you stayed married so long? They see pictures of my daughter and go, how did you give birth to this? How is your family so talented? And the only person that's taught me in that world is you. It's Gilbert Gottfried. It's how is this man married? You can be married to Ruth Gordon, and they go, she married him? Ruth
Gordon.
Bussing. Any woman named Ruth married him. But you have this beautiful wife
McDivitt.
and 2 gorgeous kids. You go, what the fuck is wrong with this picture? I am nothing compared to this
Alice
guy.
Ghostly.
But now people say to me, people in the business who know Gilbert or see pictures of his family, when people say to me, your wife's beautiful, your kid's beautiful.
Well, you're not exactly the elephant man. You're an attractive fellow. Well, they shouldn't say that about you.
Don't try to make this better than it is. Okay. But it's not. I'm not talking about being ugly. But thank you, Frank. I'm talking about just being a monster. I'm talking about the fact that the jokes I say about my wife, and the things I've done about her, is horrendous. And it's amazing that I can stay married this long. And anytime anybody points out, I go, "What about Gilbert?" They go, "Oh yeah, okay." He's actually beat me. He's actually beat me in the world.
His children are beautiful.
Yeah. His wife. What about his wife?
His wife is beautiful too.
Yeah, but they're obviously insane. Okay. But anyway, but he's beat me in that world.
You want to go out on an insult?
Yeah, of course. I'm the pit bull of comedy.
Yeah.
We'll be doing part 2, so we haven't even touched. Look at all the stuff I haven't got to.
What do you got on your list? Tell us.
No, I didn't get to the Gong Show. We never talked about, oh my God, the Pink Panther.
Right.
We'll do
come
this
back.
again.
Sammy, we didn't get to Sammy Petrillo.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything about Sammy Petrillo.
Right.
But oh my
or
God.
famous monsters of Filmland.
Oh,
Or
there was so much more. I had the greatest collection of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, one of the world's
Rico Browning.
biggest collection of stuff.
Next time. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, it was just...
I have to tell this to Gilbert. I was talking on the phone with you yesterday. I found it, and you mentioned it here, I found it very strange that Plan 9 scared you as a kid. Because looking at it now.
No, I'm sure...
What was the other one you said, Horror Hotel?
Horror Hotel, which actually I just did some research on. Horror Hotel. Do you remember Horror Hotel with Christopher Lee? It took place in Massachusetts, in the Salem, and they actually had a sacrifice in the movie. It was black and white. It was atmospheric. It was done in 1960. Do you remember the movie?
Sure.
Not
it was
that
real.
well.
These people check into the hotel. And underneath there's a coven of witches, and they kill this woman. And at the end, Selwyn, whatever her name is, they burn her at the stake. When you're 10 years old, that's really a beautiful, scary film.
Is Christopher Lee in that?
Christopher Lee, yeah, he plays the head of the coven and a head witch guy. But what's interesting is you Google Horror Hotel, the movie is actually called City of the Dead. It was an English film, but it took place in Massachusetts. And the reason, and this is IMDb, it's not me, the reason they changed the name to Horror Hotel, because in the 50s and early 60s, they said American audiences, teenagers, wanted stupid names for movies. And Horror Hotel would bring them in. City of the Dead wouldn't do it. So they did it to placate the stupid American audiences and call a movie Horror Hotel,
What movie really scared you, Gil, as a kid? I know we talked
Plan
about
9
scenes.
didn't scare you, Frank?
No, well, I think I saw too late. I think I was too old. But you talked about those isolated scenes in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Were there any that really, really gave you the creeps?
Oh, I don't remember. Do you know what I remember scared me? That wasn't a horror movie, but when I was a kid, they had that movie Caged about the women's prison.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when they grab her and are shaving her head bald.
Oh, that was not Susan Hayward. That's how I want to live. That's how I want to live.
Yeah. That I was like, oh.
Really?
Yeah. What the hell?
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have gone for Carnival of Souls.
Oh, yeah. That's a
creepy
good one.
movie.
Yeah, seriously creepy.
The best one, though. The one that really scared me and my daughter, and you got to show this to your kids, was not William Castle. Why don't you call him House on Haunted Hill?
Oh, yeah. That's a Castle film.
Is it Castle?
Yeah.
With Elijah Cook Jr., with the blood's dripping from the ceiling, and Vincent Price, and the skeleton, he takes the vat of acid,
right?
And his wife falls into the vat, and that woman on the wheels, remember?
Oh, yes, yes.
I used to do that to my daughter, that woman, that old lady, the caretaker.
I think
the most frightening thing scared the hell out of me.
I think Corman's Pit and the Pendulum was pretty creepy.
That was pretty scary.
Too.
And all those,
I saw Night of the Living Dead.
Me too.
The
Late
original
at night. And
at the Waverly Theater. And it was they'd have midnight showings of it.
The old Waverly.
And that film scared me back then.
That was a beautiful piece of work, and that's why, if you look at Romero's stuff, that paved the way. There's too much zombie crap now.
Oh, it's
horrible.
I used to love the zombie movies of Night of the Living. Dawn of the Dead was great.
Val Lewton.
Val
walked with a zombie.
I walked with a zombie and the Catwoman.
Yeah. Now it's stuff. Like idiotic. Yeah.
Idiotic. And even now I look back at some of these movies and the most idiotic thing ever? And my daughter pointed this out. It's another thing. And I did this in my act. But I had done it before she pointed it out. That's how we think alike. At the end of Bride of Frankenstein, he goes, "We belong dead."
Oh, yeah.
Right. And he pulls the switch to blow up the castle.
Gilbert used to do that in his act.
Why? I used to do my act too. Why is there a switch to blow up the castle? Why do you even have that switch?
Yeah.
What is that for?
Yeah.
On, off, blow up castle?
Yeah.
Hey, check the air conditioning. Don't blow up the castle. You pull it. What is that for? What do you need that for?
Yeah, I always said, well, the guy who built the castle said, you want a lever to blow it up? I could throw it in. Yeah.
And that shows you why women have let us down on every level. You bring some fucking broad back to life, and she still won't put out. You let her live in a castle, you bring her back to life, and she still won't put out.
Next time we'll talk about all the other stuff on your list.
I get so much more stuff. All right? Don't you do a big ending?
Yeah.
You sing a song about music?
Okay.
We don't sing a song.
There's just one place for me, and that's near you.
That's what I want to do.
Our fans actually love it when he sings. He'll sing obscure theme songs. Last week was the...
What?
What was that from?
Milton Berle.
Oh, that's
Used then.
Last week he sang the theme from The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean.
Yeah. Marmalade, molasses, and honey, cinnamon and sassafras tea. I know our lives could be so happy and
I warned you.
sunny if you'd go away with me. I know I'd really like to do. Head for the hills with you.
You know what's amazing? I grew up with the Beatles. I must have heard Yesterday a billion times. I can't remember more than one line from that.
I know.
Or any Stone
He
song.
remembered the theme from the Lords of Flatbush. I mean, real weird shit. Remember Bang the Drum Slowly with De Niro?
Yes, with Robert
He
De Niro,
remembered
yeah.
the friggin' song from the that they what is it? They perform it on a TV station.
Please excuse my tears, but I've been on the road to
the greatest hits of Gilbert
tribulation,
Gottfried.
and I find no consolation here.
Oh my God, I'm exhausted from this. That's me, not you.
We do that to our guests.
And yeah, Lords of Flat. Hey, what do you say? Looks like it's gonna be a very fine day. My girl is with me today.
You got a song in you, Bob?
Yeah.
No, I'm emotionally spent. I'm drained.
I know the actual. See, I sang the David Pomeranz song.
That's right, to Greg Evigan.
From Zap. But the one that was performed by a group called Plain Jane, if they ever actually really existed outside this film, the actual theme song to Zapped was Something's Happening to Me. Where is that quiet kid I used to be? Not long ago, one I used to know.
You know, what's the famous saying? And I think Fred Astaire once said it. I'm not sure. Leave him wanting more.
Yeah.
It's way too late for that, isn't it?
Yeah, way
We've
too-
gone way
Beyond.
that.
I'm just giving the fans what they want.
I'm looking at my notes going, what can I end with? I go, don't drag this out anymore.
Yeah.
You know? Bring it Kevorkian. Just put it out of
These
its
people
misery.
have to go home.
No, my phrase is leave them where they don't want to listen to the podcast ever
He
again.
doesn't have to do it.
Great. I'm the one responsible for this. Great.
Yeah, we'll blame it on you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks for having
So
me, guys.
this has been
You're the
Gilbert
best.
Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast. I'm Gilbert Gottfried. I'm here with my co-host Frank Santopadre at Nutmeg Post, and we've been talking to Bobby Slayton.
Thank you, Frank Verderosa. Thank you, Bob.